Hi, welcome to the presentation, Teaching Students How to Ethically and Legally Use Images, a Sociocultural Perspective. My name is Jolie Hicks. I'm an instructor of English and the English Education Program Coordinator at Southwestern Oklahoma State University. Additionally, I'm a doctoral student at Oklahoma State University, getting a PhD in Education, Language Literacy, and Culture. The guide for this presentation is we're going to look at theories, sociocultural and multimodal. We're going to look at the problem, the image use and consequences. We're going to look to take action with ethical and legal uses of images. We're going to analyze on what the sociocultural multimodal implications are, and then we're going to reflect on future teaching practices. First of all, we're going to talk about literacy theories and their definitions. We have sociocultural literacies, which is more than cognition. The sociocultural perspective is a theory and research in academic fields such as psychology and education to describe how an individual's behavior and cognitive processes can be shaped by their social and cultural identities. This relates to gender, race, socioeconomic status, sexuality, etc., and that's by Sanderson. Through sociocultural perspectives, researchers underscore how past experiences and environmental exposures influence social interactions and perceptions of those interactions. Relating to images, a form of visual communication, the sociocultural context in which images take their meaning connects to historical and cultural connections that shape viewers' realities. These literacy practices include how we use and interpret images and how that image use influences our thought and ideas about reality. So in other words, it connects with our ways of thinking about and doing reading and writing in cultural contexts. And literacy practices are always constructed out of a specific social condition, including political and economic structures. Literacy studies highlight how users' online practices are influenced by their ethnicity, English language learning, socioeconomic background, learning difficulties, geography, and coexisting categories of marginalization. If we're looking at a photograph, which has the power to simulate reality or the existence of its subject, Bart argues that a photograph seems to constitute a message without a code by virtue of its absolute analogical nature. The image implies reality. Bart also acknowledges how a headline or text associated with an image can anchor its meaning, especially as it relates to the sociocultural context in which the image is housed. When viewers see an image, they make an assumption based on their experiences in relationship to the subject in that image. Therefore, images should be analyzed in the social context in which they are produced through the sociocultural literacies perspective. Now we're going to talk about multimodal literacies, more than cognition. This is about the role of non-linguistic modes in human social meaning and the social semiotics which attends to meaning making of diverse kinds, whether of words, actions, images, somatic meanings for other modes. Now from the multimodal literacies, which is found on NCTE's website from 2005, they talk about how the integration of multiple modes of communication and expression can enhance or transform the meaning of a work being illustrated, such as an image. It is the interplay of meaning-making systems, we have the alphabetic, the oral, the visual, that teachers and students should strive to study and produce. Multiple ways of knowing, again, that includes the images. Students should be able to both read critically and write functionally no matter what the medium, and we're going to talk about that as far as images is concerned. So why these lenses? Sociocultural and multimodal approaches to research can be strengthened by critically interrogating the intersection of power, race, whiteness, and society that shapes text and textual practices. What's the problem here? Well, image use and the consequences of those uses. Through technological progress and the digital turn, pop culture and mass media provide new opportunities, but also bring new risks. With the burgeoning participation in social media, advertisers, commercial photographers, participants, and content creators have gained global access to these popularized spaces and contributed to this new commercial culture, including their ability to spread and popularize images. Because of money motivations, Noble, in her popular book, Algorithms of Oppression, she explains how lucrative search engines such as Google profit from paying clients who give top dollar for highly optimized advertising related content for placement on the first page of search results. Noble also argues how these people make the decisions and vetting information in online spaces hold certain moral values, unfortunately, such as racism, sexism, and false notions of meritocracy. She notes how the process of content selection reflects a profit imperative that makes money from racism and sexism. Agreeing with this point, Jenkins et al. Acknowledges how visual content creators seek to gain recognition, to influence culture, to express personal meaning, as well as make money. And Pixley acknowledges how photography has been a resource for people empowered to wield that power through their determination of what, when, and where, and who publishes specific images. So those sites of influence that reframe our thinking, their blog posts, videos, podcasts, ebooks, it grabs the audience's attention, and this includes tone, understanding influence, and we have to ask ourselves which images are appropriate. As long as search engines continue to use images as a part of this participatory culture, these places will remain sites of influence over the people who engage in online literacy activity. As our students create more and more digital products like the ones mentioned on this particular slide, we're going to have to help them illustrate these key concepts, set a certain tone, present a more complete understanding of ideas to reframe and reflect our reality. And the internet is absolutely teeming with images students can grab and use in a matter of seconds, but in most cases, they should not grab. Despite the fact that these images are easy to use, using them may be illegal. Again, which images are appropriate to use, and why does it matter? Is legal image use really a big deal in school projects? If our students are just using images to enhance assignments for class, it might be easy to shrug off the technicalities since most of these images will never be seen by audiences outside of the classroom. But we have to consider two things. Even if your students are working within a tightly monitored, password-protected, closed online environment, there's no guarantee that the products they create will always remain private. Proud parents might want to share their work, and grandparents, maybe they're going to want to use it for future use, like in a portfolio for professional representations. This also affects these types of images they choose to use, which includes or could include misrepresentations and or fair representations of people groups, which could perpetuate, again, our misthinking. Why not prepare students for the day when these rules will carry more serious consequences? As students move out of school and into professional contexts, being trained in the proper legal use of images will serve them well. And legal use of images is also closely tied to ethical habits and plagiarism. Choosing images that accurately depict our world helps boost ethical image use as well. So in the spirit of complying with the law and preparing the next generation to participate responsibly online, let's review the different approaches students can take to add images to their written work, blog posts, videos, presentations, and other digital products. We'll start with the safest and most affordable option. And number one, they can take action for this and use their images legally and ethically by making their own images. Now, if students create their own images, then they own the copyright and they can use them without paying any money to get permission, unless the photos are of someone else, but we'll get to that in a minute. So as far as those illustrations are concerned, they can hand make them. They can draw or paint an image on paper, create a paper collage, or even build something in 3D, like a sculpture, and then take a picture of it and use that photo for whatever digital product they're creating. But also using simple programs like MS Paint for Windows, Paper by 53 for iOS devices, or web-based tools like Google Drawing, Adobe Creative Cloud, Canva, which you can see, I made this digital logo from Canva, and many more. So on these platforms, students can create just about any illustration they can think of, and they can save it as a PDF or a PNG or a JPEG, and then add it wherever they like. Also, students can take their own digital photos and upload them in a heartbeat using sites like PicMonkey and Pixlr to edit or enhance them for free. So I took all of these collaged pictures here. They were free pictures on Google for Creative Commons. We'll talk about that in a minute. And I edited them on Pixlr. And so playing around with these sites, you can manipulate images. So when using photos they can take themselves, students should keep the following rules in mind. You don't need permission when if you took that photo at a public event and the photo will be used for journalistic purposes to simply describe the event, for example. If the person is not recognizable in the photo, their face isn't showing, for example, they don't need permission. But when do they need permission? Well, you might have subjects sign photo release forms in person if it's possible, or have them copy the language from a photo release form from an email. If the subject is a minor, like 18 years in the US and younger, you're going to need permission from their parent. But if you're going to use the photo for commercial purposes to sell something or promotional purposes, you're going to need permission. If you take a photo on private property, you might get permission. If you're holding an event like a festival, a party, or a concert, and you plan to take those photos that you might share with the public and publish online somewhere, you're probably going to need permission for that as well. You might need permission if you're taking photos of a student at school. It's likely that parents and guardians of those students signed a media release, so you need to check with the teachers or administrators in that building. Also, if you are going to take a picture that contains an image of a store or a business logo, you're going to need permission from that business. If the student has a job that includes taking photos, well, technically they belong to the employer. You're going to need to ask the employer for permission. So there's another option when using digital photos, and you can use Creative Commons in images. And so we're going to go here and talk about Google Photos. So if I go and I want to search like the image on the slide that I have, let's say freedom. I'm in Google. I'm going to go over here to Tools. Right, it's not going to do it now that I'm in a program or in a presentation. There we go. All results. Well, I'm going to go to Images first. Sorry. I'm going to go to Images, and then I'm going to go to Tools, and then Usage Rights, Creative Commons. When you select that, all of the Creative Commons licenses for those pictures are going to pull up. So Creative Commons is a good way to do that. Remember that this is at least the least restrictive level is one student should look first. Items marked CC0. These can be used by anyone for any purpose without having to get permission or credit. So I'm going to go look at this photo again and see if I can look over here and see it says CC0, which is the equivalent to public domain. So I don't have to give credit for this photo when I use it. And again, how did I get there? I'm going to go over here to Images. And then you can see how the commercial licenses are Creative Commons, and that's from clicking on Tools. Now, that's a good one, but another good one would be CC by attribution. If we look at CC by attribution, then we are going to have to give credit. We can still use it, but we've got to put the title, the author, the source where it is located, and the license attribution. So if I go to this particular image, and I scroll down and take a look, I can see that it says CC by, and that means attribution, right? So they do want me to give credit for that particular picture. So anything CC by, and then there's some attribution, we have to give them credit. We're gonna have to do that by the title, the author, the source, and the license. So where to find Creative Commons images? Well, we can find Creative Commons images at StockSnap, Good Free Photos, Foodies Feed, Flickr, Commons, Photos for Class. All of the pictures in this particular presentation came from Photos for Class, and Google search tools, which I have already shown you. And so a really quick demonstration of Photos for Class, I'm getting over time here, is to go to the website Photos for Class, and it kind of looks like, yep, it looks exactly like that. I can click on it, and then it's going to have a search engine, and I can just type class, and it's going to give me all of the information and where the source is as well, so that we can download those images. Analysis. All right, as I wrap this thing up, Ashwell asserts how photographers must be aware of the stereotypes that they reinforce through their images. So not only do students need to use images legally, they need to use them ethically, and making sure that they're depicting all people groups in a fair light, fair representations. The images should always be evaluated to make sure certain people groups are not being disrespected. And also Fuda argues how photographers must consider themselves a part of the protester culture and examine their own ethos professionally and personally as they capture their moments. Photographers must also be aware of the danger of telling a single story narrative through their visual communication, which has to do with sociocultural perspectives, sociocultural literacies. As students leave their public schools to thrive in the real world, we need to prepare them for ethical citizenship and protect them from serious consequences such as lawsuits or major fines. Again, this has to do with their ethos. So reflecting on future teaching, our students don't follow the news by reading the paper. What do? They watch YouTube, they track Twitter, they're scrolling through Instagram. So we are going to have to teach them how to use, how to read, how to communicate effectively with images. Sarah Feeney also refers to these print, visual, and video combinations as multimodal ensembles to capture the fact we rarely encounter information in a single mode anymore. Whether we're viewing a Snapchat or reading an online article, most of the text we engage with convey meanings across several modes that shape the meanings within that mode. We've got to teach students how to get this done. So the case is strengthened, and Olio has this in his blog on NCT website in 2020. The case is strengthened by Bill Cope and Mary Kalanis, two eminent experts in the intersecting field of literacy, semiotics, and instructional design. It's their belief that we need to consider and integrate new forms of literacy that will be essential in creating new or transformed forms of employment, new ways of participating as a citizen in public spaces, and new forms of community engagement. We have to do that as teachers, and as I've been going through this class, reflecting on my teaching process, I have to include this to help students out wide, to prepare them for the future, to work in real world spaces, to bridge the gap between their home life and the academic life that they are now a part of, to engage them in multiple literacies, the diversity of funds of semiotic knowledge, and to communicate because we're in a globalized environment now. And here are my references. You can get those from me at a later time. If you have questions, let me know. Thanks for listening.